yes, this class is a little on the weaker end. It doesn't mean that there aren't sleepers or guys we love in this class. It doesn't mean there aren't guys who are being slept on that may have really good analytical profiles. And so we're going to do our best to find those guys. They're going to be a lot harder to find this year, but we've got some guys that the data says could be really good dynasty assets, and we're going to talk about why. We got to start with a guy, I don't even know if you guys know who he is. I hope you know who he is, but some of you guys who just watch, dynasty content, nobody's talking about this guy. And Nate and I are going to talk about him. And let's talk about Eli Heidenreich from Navy. This dude, I get it. He played at Navy, right? He's playing in a wing T offense. He's lining up as a fullback and running routes. Like, I totally understand. And the funny thing about Eli Heidenreich and what you need to know about his background is he's in both the running back bakery and the wide receiver bakery. Why is that? Because he plays both positions. Yes, he plays wide receiver and running back. And not only does he play both positions, he excels at both positions, okay? We've got some clips from the Shrine Bowl. I'm going to try to send them to our editor and see if we can get them up. Just played in the Shrine East-West Bowl, was in Dallas, and was one of the top performers of the week, one of the top graded prospects of the week down there, was a stock-up guy for a lot of scouts down there, which is no surprise if you've been watching Eli Heidenreich at all this season. Again, in the running back bakery, this dude with 0 round draft capital is the running back 10. You give him any respectable draft capital, 4th round draft capital, for example, he immediately becomes the running back 7 in this class. You give him 3rd round draft capital, he's the running back 4 in this class. So that's just the running back bakery. Now let's go to the other bakery, the wide receiver bakery. 0 round draft capital, he is 14th. He's the highest rated guy with no draft capital in the bakery. You give him 3rd round draft capital, and he's going to, I just said 23rd, that's why I broke it. It jumps up to the wide receiver 7 with 3rd round draft capital. And I don't think he's actually going to probably get this 3rd round draft capital. And the huge caveat here with Eli Heidenreich, before we even get into why this is such a good analytical prospect, is that he played at Navy, and that is valid. Now, Navy did have some better people on their schedule this year. They played North Texas. They played Notre Dame. They played USF, right? South Florida, I think.
Yeah, USF was ranked this year, and then they played Cincinnati as well. And Navy themselves was 11-2. So, they were a good football team, and this was one of their better years.
And I know
they're a respectable program.
I know we're not looking into Heidenreich as this guy who played against high-level competition, obviously. But at the same time, he is being dinged. The conference rank does come into play on the bakery.
Yeah, we're already
the amount of NFL players he's playing with on his roster comes into account, so he's being graded very low in both those things. And still grades out as a very good prospect in the bakery. And you might be asking yourself why. Buckle up. Here we go. Among the players in the 2026, and I don't know, most of this is among wide receivers, but we have a couple among running backs as well. Among the 2026 players that we're scouting, Eli Heidenreich was 1st in yards per route run. He was 1st in yards per route run versus man coverage. He was 1st in yards per route run versus zone coverage. He was 1st in yak per route as well. He was 1st in yard share or dominator rating. He was 7th in missed tackles forced per attempt. He was 1st in yards per carry. He was 1st in yards per reception. And he was 1st in receiving yards share among running backs as well. This dude slaps. His tape, I will tell you what, when you watch this guy as a runner, he's a great downhill runner. He's always falling forward. He can make you miss in open space, and I'll just straight up run you over. He's got enough size to do that. We have him listed as 6 foot, 206 pounds. Not the fastest guy, but it doesn't really matter. Downhill runner, good vision. As a route runner, he can catch passes out of the backfield, obviously, but even just lining up anywhere as a wide receiver, he will beat you. He gets good separation on his routes. He's got amazing hands. He has good contested catch. This dude
is straight up the most fun film
by far.
Has the most watch, really.
And for lack of a better term, he is a Swiss Navy knife, not a Swiss Army knife. Swiss Navy.
Nice.
Swiss Navy knife.
Did you come up with that?
Was that
a Ryan thing?
I was going to say Army, but you can't say Army, so
I'm
Swiss Navy knife.
That was good.
This dude can do it all, and he grades out analytically fantastically. And I get it. I get that he's playing at Navy, and I get that he's probably not going to get super high draft capital, but I just think when I watch this dude, I think that he could be an NFL weapon. Mm-hmm. I think he could be an NFL wide receiver or running back, to be honest with you, and be decent at both. I really do. And so I think he's a 3-down back. I think he could be a 3-down back in the NFL. I'm not even kidding you. His film is incredible and his analytics are incredible. And an archetype in the bakery is a 3-down back as well with his size and the amount of volume he got in college. Eli Heidenreich, man, you need to keep an eye out for this dude because, again, just popped off in the Shrine Bowl, had an amazing analytical season at Navy, was the most efficient prospect in this class by far at both positions. Efficient as all get out. He takes the crown for the efficiency this year in this draft class. And again, I think he can do a little bit of everything. I think there's going to be an NFL team that, if they really get into the tape on Heidenreich, really likes him and takes him and uses him. I'm not even going to throw out comparisons, because you would probably kill me if I tell you who he reminded me of. But
I think
no,
if you watch, you'll know.
Watch his tape, and you tell me who he
know.
reminds you of. But this dude is incredible, and I think he's somebody that, even though he's a sleeper, has a great analytical profile, and you should keep an eye on for this year's draft class.
This is also not the first time that we've mentioned him. If you watch our last rankings video that we did in early January, like our first comprehensive rankings video with a full season of college football data, Heidenreich was in that last tier, and we highlighted him and said, look for him to be a potential riser, and the analytics have, in our opinion, kind of solidified that riser status for him. Yep. Next guy that we're going to have here is someone who is very near and dear to our hearts, who had one of the greatest catches I've ever seen in my entire life. And, heavily contributed to Indiana football winning a national championship this year. Omar Cooper did officially declare. There was actually some questions on whether he would, or if he would return for one more season with IU. He ends up declaring, which I do think is kind of indicative on what he and his agent believe he is going to get in terms of draft capital in this year's class. 22 years old. He's a redshirt junior. And I'm not going to lie. He has really, really boosted his analytics in the bakery with his efficiency metrics throughout the course of this entire season. When you look at some of the individual metrics here, 4th in missed tackles forced. So again, top of the class at the wide receiver position in missed tackles forced, 14th in receiving grades, 17th in slot yards. Again, when you're looking kind of at a skill set, he's going to be more of a slot-esque type of wide receiver. And he's very, very good with after the catch elusiveness and ability there. 4th in receiving grade against zone, 12th in yards per route run. In the 2026 class, 7th yards per route run versus zone, 13th in yak per, is that yak per reception?
Yes.
Okay. So 13th in yak per reception. One of the most elusive, again, receivers in the class with the ball in his hands. Like, the way that he moves once he catches the ball reminds me so much of Zay Flowers. And he's got kind of that slot usage that, again, some of the premier slots in the NFL have, where it's like, okay, yeah, he could get a good amount of work because he is pretty elusive and he is pretty good as a route runner. Look, he's not a guy that we think is going to be like, going to have true number one upside. He's in that yellow tier in the bakery, though. And when you look at the guys that are in that tier with Omar Cooper, Denzel Boston is just ahead of him and Casey Concepcion is just behind him. This is giving Omar Cooper second round draft capital. So again, if you don't think that he's going to get second round draft capital, give him third. He does fall down a tier. He's right there by Chris Brazel and Jeremy Bernard and Surratt in that orange tier.
He's getting second round draft capital.
He's getting second round draft capital. I'm just going to tell you right now, like, get ready for it. The hype is going to continue to increase with him. For anybody who's kind of worried or concerned about like how he finished the season against some of the tougher competition, he did have a calf injury in the Big Ten championship game, which did notably hobble him in those 2 games before the Natty. And then he looked like himself in the Natty. So again, we're going to give him a little bit of a break there, but the analytics and his production and all of that stuff, that none of that factors in injury, and he still is a yellow tier wide receiver with second round draft capital, which we're very confident that he's going to get. If you're wondering how he's going to fit in terms of like an NFL fit, he's going to be like, he has the upside of being a true number 2. He doesn't really have like alpha level upside where he can be like all over the field, lining up on the outside like crazy, and can line up in the slot and can just dominate anywhere. Like, he is going to be someone that's going to have to fit a scheme. Or fit within a scheme and then be utilized accordingly. But his athletic ability is not a question whatsoever. I mean, all you literally have to do is watch the one play against Penn State where he had that ridiculous game-winning touchdown catch, and you're like, okay, yeah, he's got, like, he has the body control, he has the hands, he has the spatial awareness on on the sideline to be able to bring that down. The elusiveness, again, like I mentioned, Zay Flowers, I think, is a pretty decent comp for him, at least athletically. So keep an eye on Omar Cooper. He's going to be one of our favorite guys, not just because he's from IU, but because he's legitimately a good wide receiver. And while most people are kind of tooting the Elijah Surratt horn, we're actually going to be more on the Omar Cooper side. We think that he translates quite a bit better to the NFL than Elijah Surratt does, just in terms of skill set.
Yeah, I think people are catching on with Omar Cooper Jr. He was, again, 4th in receiving grade against zone coverage on PFF. Who was 1st against man coverage? Who led college football against man coverage?
Omar.
Nope.
Heidenreich.
Nope.
Surratt.
Think about it. Then just take a second and think. You'll get it.
Oh, what? Just Jordan Tyson?
Charlie Becker.
First
against zone coverage in all of college football.
Dang, Charlie Becker's another guy that you're going to get really sick.
I was going to say you're going to be sick of hearing about Charlie Becker here in a year.
He's the best wide receiver at IU with Cooper and Surratt.
It was awesome.
He's the best.
If you want access to the bakery and you want to see all these analytics for yourself, we've got that available to you over on the site. You can get a free team blueprint as well. Nathan and I can look at your team, look at your rookie picks, look at the rest of your roster, and give you a plan for this offseason. You can also get in a league. Again, you can get the vault, you can get the bakery, and all of these analytics as well. If you're an analytical guy like Nathan and I are, like, you will really enjoy, I think, what we have on the site. You can check it out. I've got the link in the pinned comment. We actually have a huge announcement that I want to tell you about. We are running our very first ever Flex Night here at Dynasty Domain. And what this is, basically, people who want to show off their Dynasty teams, who think they have such a good Dynasty team that they think they can win awards for it. We are going to basically have a night where you can flex and win free stuff. We're giving away 11 total prizes, 10 categorical prizes of different things like best running back room, best wide receiver room, best analytical team, and then we're going to crown a Dynasty Domain grand champion, with the grand prize being Nathan and I are going to fly you to Indianapolis for the draft night. You're going to get all access backstage pass to the draft show, hang out here in the studio with us, be around our entire team. Plus, you're going to get a free annual membership, 3 free Blueprint Premiums. So a massive grand prize, and then prizes for every single other prize. So again, we have a total of 11 awards that we're going to be giving out. You can enter with the link in the comment. I'm going to have a link down below with all the details. All you have to do is submit a team review, and Nathan and I do the blueprint for you, and we're going to enter it in the contest if you put in the chat 2026 Flex Night. And so we've got all the details down below in the comments. If you think you have a good enough Dynasty team to win or win one of the prizes, it'll be well worth your time. If you want a prize, everything is free for you. And you can, again, find all the details. I've got them pinned down in the comments below. But start getting your submissions in now, because we're going to go ahead and start getting all these together for Flex Night. We're so excited for this. So if you think that you are one of the best Dynasty managers around, check out all the prizes and all the competitions we're going to be giving away. Submit your team, and then starting February 17th, we're going to be able to do Flex Night and announce all the award winners. So check that out in the link in the pinned comment, but we'll get back to the video. I want to talk about Desmond Reid next. And really, with Desmond Reid, I mean, let's go ahead and get the huge question marks out of the way. There's a reason he's more of a sleeper / under the radar guy, and not like, oh, this guy's really amazing. And it's because he's small, right? I think he's 5'8". I bet he weighs $180. So you're talking about like the guys who have actually been able to have success in the NFL at that size being basically nobody. Warwick Dunn and Devon Achane, and that's pretty much it. And he's probably smaller than Achane was, and so he's a tiny dude, and I totally understand that. However, I think his skill set does lend itself to one that could still be productive in the NFL from a fantasy football perspective. When you're looking at his build and archetype in the bakery, he's a jitterbug and plus receiver. So the jitterbugs are the guys who are a little bit on the smaller end. Shut up. A little bit on the smaller end from a build perspective. Not like a bell cow 3-down build, but the plus receiver archetype means that basically that they excel at receiving out of the backfield. So when you're talking about how he could actually fit into an NFL offense, I think his, even though he's small, it's really the receiving that jumps off the page here. And so I want to talk about some of those receiving metrics as well. Of all of the running backs in this class, he is second in receiving yards share. He is second in yards per reception. Not to mention, he's fifth in yards per catch. He's sixth in elusivity. He's sixth in missed tackles forced per attempt. So you can kind of see baked into his analytics what he's good at. He's one of the best pass-catching running backs in this class based on an analytical standpoint. He's very shifty. He forces a lot of missed tackles. He's very good in space, and he is efficient, and he has good vision. And so, again, the size is obviously a concern. What I think he could excel at in the NFL is being a receiving back exclusively. That doesn't necessarily lend itself to being a game-breaking fantasy football, upside guy. Similar to a guy that we just saw come out that I think you could probably put a comp on is Brashard Smith to the Chiefs. Brashard Smith was also this jitterbug plus wide receiver type deal. He had a little bit, honestly, Desmond Reid has a little bit of a better profile than Brashard Smith does, but I think like how Brashard Smith was used in his rookie year is very similar to how, Desmond Reid could be used as well. Obviously playing for Pat Narduzzi at Pitt. Pitt was a good team this year. They were solid. They played some good competition as well. And so, he had a bunch of all-purpose yards this year because he was, again, one of the leading receiving backs in this class. When you're looking at his analytical profile and his receiving dominator rating, it's rated as a 10 in the bakery, and that tells you all you need to know. With 5th-round draft capital, he is the running back 7. If you give him any higher, he starts climbing very quickly. And so, again, a very good analytical profile here for Desmond Reid out of Pittsburgh. And I think it's one where he has a very specific skill set. Obviously, he has very specific and very obvious limitations and drawbacks to his profile. But I think anytime you have a running back with this much of a receiving skill set, this much receiving upside, you always have to keep an eye on them in terms of their NFL use case, because I think there is a case for a guy this small to be used in the NFL. It's just a matter of, number one, what his combine measurements are, how fast he runs. I think that's a big thing. We are projecting him low right now to 4.4, but I think he probably will be in the 4.3s. So how fast he runs in the combine, I think is going to be big for his stock.
4.3s would be sick.
Yeah, I think he's going to get in the maybe low 4.3s is what I'm projecting here for Desmond Reid. And so I think, again, tons of very obvious reasons to say, yeah, we should pump the brakes on this guy. But again, he's just a sleeper. He's not being talked about as a really not being talked about as a top 10 back in this class. And I think with his receiving skill set,
easily.
Yeah, I think with his receiving skill set, I think he's somebody you should definitely keep an eye on from a sleeper standpoint. And again, analytically, he grades out super well because his receiving profile is so darn good.
Little note with him too, of all the running backs and all the players period that came back to school in 2026, Desmond Reid was the one guy that we assumed would go back to school, and he actually ended up declaring. So we've been aware of Desmond Reid, but we haven't really spent any time talking about him until now because we
didn't think he was coming out.
We didn't think he was coming out. So that's a one little nice little positive plus for this class.
We had somebody that wanted to come to the NFL.
One step forward, 16 steps back.
Right.
Trinidad Chambliss is going to be our next guy here. I don't know if we've ever talked about him in a video yet.
Well, and he's still
massive caveat to this one, because Chambliss's hearing date, I believe, is like February 12th. So there is a decent chance, there's a much more than non-zero chance that he ends up going back to school still. He wants to go back to school.
Yes.
Do I want him to go back to school? No. Do I think he should go back to school? So I could see why he would want to, because he does have some things that he could develop and get better at. And I think he could get better at Ole Miss if he stayed for one more year, but he's already an older prospect. He had kind of that weird, that weird climb up where he was a D2 champion and then he transferred to Ole Miss and had a lot of success, obviously this year, making it to the semifinal. And really Trinidad Chambliss's best football came at the end of the season in the biggest moments. If you recall, he wasn't even the starting quarterback for Ole Miss this season. They actually, their starter got injured and then he came in, and they didn't really miss a step, and he actually showed a lot of really nice elusiveness behind the line of scrimmage. He's a dangerous rushing threat. The biggest thing that you're going to have, the biggest knock on Trinidad Chambliss's profile, is that he is really small.
He's tiny.
Very, very
He's
small.
Kyler size small.
He's, like Pavia size small.
He's miniature.
So that's obviously not going to be something where it's like, okay, he's definitely not going to get any solid draft capital whatsoever if he declares, like we've seen guys that are small get first round draft capital plenty of times, but it is going to be something that's like, okay, he's going to have to show that he can handle that at the NFL level and show that he actually has the ability to develop, even though he's quite a bit older. 4th in deep throw adjusted accuracy, 4th in rushing yard share, 12th in PFF pressure to sack ratio and CFB. So again, kind of just a reflection of his elusiveness, his ability to escape pressure. 13th in PFF passing grade among starters in CFB. 4th most big time throws among those starters. 17th in big time throw percentage. So again, like you're talking about like the highest level of college football, right? He's in a Power 4 conference. He's in the SEC. He's playing really good teams, really solid teams most weeks. And again, his best football being against some of the better teams in college football in the playoff when he went up against Georgia and worked that defense, absolutely worked them. So look, with Chambliss, we're going to be big fans of him this season if he comes out, because this quarterback class is really weak beyond Mendoza. And the crazy thing with Chambliss, even though he's 23 and a half years old, as a redshirt senior and a little guy, small build, is in that green tier with Fernando Mendoza right behind him if you give him first round draft capital.
That's scary.
So if you give him second round draft capital, which I think is possible, he's in that tier with Ty Simpson and Drew Aller, which is not a terrible tier. It's just not nearly as good as the green tier. But I'm just telling you right now, if there's someone in the late first who wants to draft a potential project quarterback and a potential starter, like a year down the road even, like the Rams, then Chambliss would be like the guy that you would want to take a shot on in the first. So I would highly recommend that you track this like big time in what's going to happen at this hearing date with the NCAA. I don't think it's any guarantee that Chambliss gets approved to go back to college football.
I also
and
don't
if he
think
goes
that.
back, and if he goes to the NFL, like I think people are going to start really, really talking about him, and a lot of buzz is going to start forming around him, and you're not going to be able to really get him at the potential price that you could right now, especially if you have like early rookie drafts. So
yeah, and I'll go ahead and just answer all of this. I guarantee somebody's gonna be like, "Oh, Chambliss is going back to Ole Miss." These guys, like, thank you, Captain Obvious. Like, we don't freaking know that. Thank you very much for informing us.
Yeah,
there is a 95% chance, and we realize this, a 95% chance that Trinidad Chambliss gets drafted in the 3rd round or later if he actually goes in this NFL draft. We know. Trust me. We know he's tiny. There's so many limitations there. We're here for the 5% chance. We're here for the 5% chance that somebody actually wants to take a shot on him. Again, the big play and the mobility, the dual threat. It's like it does make him an intriguing prospect. Again, this is a analytical sleepers video. We know that he is not likely to be a first-round NFL selection and actually go on an NFL field and make a difference. He's going to be almost entirely draft capital dependent. So at the point where he gets 3rd-round draft capital, it's probably not happening for Trinidad. But again, we love him as a player, and I think he does have upside. I think he's an interesting prospect, and that's what this is to say. He's going back to Ole Miss. Thank you for informing us. Like, we definitely are following the case very closely. And I actually agree with Nathan. I don't think it's a guarantee that he goes back there by any means. I don't know if he's going to win, to be honest with you. But again, it's all the NCAA legal stuff, and the NCAA puts their foot in their mouth more often than not. So let's talk about Jonah Coleman, who I think was widely regarded and still could be regarded as the running back 2 in this class. Even though there's a big drop-off after Jeremiah Love, Jonah Coleman's analytical profile still holds up very well. With 3rd-round draft capital, he's still the running back 2 in this class. With 2nd-round draft capital, he jumps up a lot, but he's in that yellow tier. The hit rates for the yellow tier, about 70% of these guys in this tier end up being running back 3s in the yellow tier, about 60% of them running back 2s, and about 33% of them running back 1s. And so actually what you find is the hit rates are only slightly decreased from tier 3. Tier 3 is much smaller than tier 4. And this tier 4 is not bad for running backs. We have 2 of these guys in here, Jadarian Price and Jonah Coleman. Again, we have Coleman with 3rd-round draft capital. I think that's the most likely outcome, is that he goes in the 3rd round of this year's draft. If he gets a good landing spot, I could see Dynasty. He's easily going to go in the 3rd round. He gets a good landing spot. He will go in the 1st of this year's class, and it will be warranted. We will not say he's a sure thing, like we said with Caleb Johnson, and we made a big mistake and told you wrong on that one. But we will say he's going to go in the 1st because it's a weaker class, and those running backs are going to be in high demand if he goes to places like the Texans. Jonah Coleman this year in college football, among running backs that are going to be drafted in this year's class, was 3rd in missed tackles forced per attempt. So he was elusive. He was 4th in yards per carry. He was 5th in yards per reception, so efficient as a receiver as well. 3rd in elusivity, that's via PFF, and 1st in yards after contact per attempt. So that shows you it's a balance of being elusive and powerful, which is a very good NFL skill set. You pair that for Jonah Coleman with the size. He's a little bit undersized, so to say. We have him at 5'9", 229 pounds. So undersized as in short, but not undersized as in he doesn't have the build to be a 3-down back, because actually his archetype in the bakery is a 3-down back. His build is a bruiser, basically meaning that he will, again, he's a powerful runner, and that shows in some of his advanced.
Get bullied.
That shows in some of his advanced analytics as well. And so Coleman, again, is a guy, when you're looking at and you're comparing his production in 2024 at Washington, he transferred from Arizona after his first 2 years to Washington in 2024. You're looking at his analytics between those last 2 years. He actually had a better 2024 than he did 2025, in part because he got hurt this year. I think he missed a couple of games, but he still did play He looks like he's got, the problem is Wisconsin, UCLA, and Oregon, he only had 5, 4, and 9 carries. I think he was banged up for that stretch. Regardless, though, he still did, like on a raw stats basis, ran for 300 less yards. He did have 5 more touchdowns this year than last year, shows his red zone capability, and I think he could be a red zone threat in the NFL as well. I truly do think he could develop into a 3-down back in the NFL, depending on what his draft capital is. But then again, he had the best receiving year of his career, 31 receptions for 354 yards, and this is what we like to see, 11.4 yards per reception for Jonah Coleman as a running back this year at Washington. That's a very, very solid analytical profile. We obviously love Jadarian Price, but it's worth noting that Jonah Coleman, for all intents and purposes, should be ranked pretty much next to Jadarian Price in every single ranking set that you see, because analytically and on tape, Jonah Coleman as an NFL prospect grades out better, if not better, than Jadarian Price is. And so this is that second tier of running backs we're talking about. So even though there is a pretty steep drop-off after Jeremiah Love, Jonah Coleman is still a guy that you should be looking at as a fairly solid prospect here, and I think room to improve if he gets solid draft capital and a good landing spot. We'll see what the combine does for him, but when you're talking about his analytics here, he is being, even though he didn't have as productive as a year on the ground, he is being very highly propped up by this bakery, and the bakery likes him as a prospect, and I think you should too. I think you should keep an eye on Jonah Coleman. I think he could easily be a solid first-round pick in this year's much weaker 2026 draft class.
One more wide receiver here, Eric McAlister out of TCU. He is actually a guy that people started to have a bit of interest in last season, and then he went back to school. So we're getting some of the leftovers from the what could have been 2025 class. And with McAlister, look, he's an interesting prospect in terms of like his build and his skill set. He's pretty physical. He's not going to be like super elusive, but when you look at his bakery score, before I even dive into the individual efficiency metrics here, we don't even have him like projected to be drafted right now. Like, we're being super conservative. If you give this guy day 3 draft capital, 4th round draft capital, which is not asking that much for a guy who's had a decent amount of production at TCU the last couple of years, he's in that orange tier with Brazel, Bernard, Surratt, and Chris Bell and Zachariah Branch. So like right now he's in the pink tier with a really conservative draft capital projection, which is nothing at all. But again, he's a guy that could easily move up depending on what his measurables look like at the combine, and again, where he ends up actually being drafted. So when you look at his yards per route run, 9th in yards per route run in the 2026 class among wide receivers, 12th in yards per route run versus zone, 5th in yak per reception, which is really, really good, 4th in yards share. So again, a lot of that yak coming from his physicality, not necessarily his elusivity. I'm just wondering if there are a couple of teams at the NFL level that will be interested in him as a physical kind of after-the-catch runner. And if that's something that they really want to see. Efficient, especially versus the zone. He could end up being a potential zone beater, hence the really, really solid yards per route run versus the zone metric there. He's also 4th in yard share, so like his dominator rating is going to be very good in this class. So keep an eye on him. Again, someone who I think a lot of people probably just left on the back burner and are going to kind of forget about unless he tests really well at the combine, unless he ends up getting really solid draft capital, and that's definitely a possibility for sure.
All right, so again, all of these guys are not obvious like game-breaking top prospects, except for really like Jonah Coleman is, and then you could make the argument for Omar Cooper now that he's getting some more hype. But again, we understand that there's the odds are, and this is just how analytical sleepers are. Most of these guys won't hit. However, it, in our opinion, was worth talking about them because their analytical profiles are so strong. And really, when you're balancing analytics and film, we are very strong in the analytics, as you know. I'm a lot more oriented, he is too, towards analytics than even film, and these guys really stand out to us in analytically. And so definitely worth pointing out on video. I loved talking about these guys, and even though, again, this is still not a great draft class, that we're still going to try to find the gems in the draft class. They're going to be much harder to find, but we're going to do our best. Drop a like, make sure you subscribe if you enjoyed this video and you enjoy rookie content in Dynasty. And again, you want to get the bakery, you want to see all of this data, you can go find it on the Flock site. You can sign up as an annual Mother Flocker with code domain, get a free blueprint, and get the bakery. Appreciate you guys. We'll see you here soon.